Hey, and welcome to this edition of Office Hours with Lanora, the home edition. Hello. I told you that I would be coming before you every Wednesday for the month of January to go over various subjects and topics to help kickstart our new year. So with that said, let's get started. The topic for today on this series of Office Hours with Lanora will be the effect of the pandemic, the coronavirus or COVID-19 pandemic on real estate and how that ultimately will affect you earning, maintaining, keeping your license, okay? So we'll talk about that today. The one thing that I like to start with is just to even be talking about this right now, to think that almost this time last year, people were coming down with symptoms of the flu and feeling sick for a more extended period of time, not really knowing what's going on. We knew what was happening over in China, but didn't have any idea that it would affect us to the degree that it has here over in the States. So just in my head, it's like, wow, I can't believe we're here. But I hope that we're slowly as well as quickly as possible getting out of this situation. So let's talk about real estate. Let's talk about the effect of this nasty coronavirus on real estate, how it affects you earning a license, maintaining and keeping a license. The first thing that I want to discuss is the essential piece of it. I know that many of you have heard on television, on news reports about essential groups that are able to work during the whole stay-at-home orders and mandates and sorts of things. Believe it or not, real estate as well as real estate professionals are deemed essential. They can work. We, as a part of an industry that is needed, just like the folks at the grocery store, just like the people at the gas stations, just like your utility companies and so on and so forth, real estate professionals have been deemed essential. I want to also preference for those of you that are already in the industry and are paying dues related to the renewal of your license as well as your membership dues that are due annually. There is a component, it's the RPAC piece, and I believe it's $20 through the Chicago Association of Realtors, but it can be more. But there's a voluntary contribution of $20 that's added to each membership. Because it's optional, you can opt out of it and not have to pay it. But to be deemed essential, think about this. There are some legislators, some lobbyists, some political people in Springfield, in Washington, D.C. that are fighting on the behalf of real estate professionals. So your contribution of that $20 towards the RPAC goes a long way because we have to pay to have a voice in this industry and we have to fight to continue to be deemed essential so that thousands, millions of us across the United States aren't considered unemployed. So take that into consideration the next time you pay your membership dues. That $20 is a great assistance and an added help and is much needed too. Okay, so let me get back to the regularly scheduled program. Essential real estate professionals, brokers, leasing agents, managing brokers, the staff of real estate offices, from the office manager to the folks at the title companies, all deemed essential. So we have a place even during this pandemic. So out of an abundance of caution and in an effort to decrease or limit the spread of the coronavirus, the COVID-19 virus, there have been some CDC guidelines that have been put in place. And that's to use, they use those guidelines to enforce or to implement rules, regulations, to help prevent exposure and to keep all of us from getting sick. So one of those guidelines, rules, and even at a state level has been that stay-at-home order or the stay-at-home mandate that the governor and the mayors around the state of Illinois have unfortunately had to enforce, and pretty much go on TV begging people to stay at home. Let's try to get the curve, get her over this, get the numbers down to ensure that we have time to work on vaccinations that are now out that can ultimately eradicate or limit the exposure of this virus. When we talk about other enforcements and other rules that the CDC and the local governments and state governments have implemented, there have been some effects of those decisions on real estate. And one that pretty much stands out the most amongst all of them is the ability to meet in person in a classroom environment. Cut out, gone. Because it's just not safe to put a room full of people. And in our cases at our school, we can house up to 40 people in a classroom. Can you imagine if we had 40 people in one classroom, multiply that by 3 to 4 classrooms, that's upwards to 120, 160 people in one area of a building. And one person in each class had been exposed to the coronavirus. It's considered a hotspot. And that could trickle and spread throughout each person in that classroom and ultimately could be catastrophic for not just our school, but for their homes, for their places of business, just in general, schools outside of ours. So that is a primary reason why, for example, the Realtors Real Estate School, we are not hosting in-person classes at this present time. To be exact, we have decided to halt all in-person classes through the end of April. So tentatively scheduled, those classes, in-person classroom options will begin again in May, tentatively, as long as the cases are not rising or out of control as they are right now. So no in-person classes, huge. How does that affect you as a potential student or someone that might need to renew their license? We've provided other options, and I spoke about one last week in terms of a webinar. So remember I said webinars are similar to a virtual classroom. We picked up the school, brought it to your house. Another option, and that's the one with the live instructors. So although you're streaming or gathering information from your computer, you do have that instructor there to help instruct and teach and provide examples and those sorts of things to help you retain the information. The other two options are deemed independent learning styles. So you work on your own. Oftentimes, they don't include instruction from a live instructor, but you do get to work independently over the course of 6 months at your own pace. That would be an online course where you're logging into our platform. You are completing modules. You have reading assignments, pre-recorded videos from the instructors. You can easily get your work done that way as well. Another option and final option that we offer at the Realtors Real Estate School would be self-study. Now, self-study is the option where we're physically shipping you materials and your book, if your course requires a book, and you're completing the reading assignments as well as those unit exams if you're required to take any testing from home. And it's a correspondence course. So you're going to send those unit exams back to us. We're going to grade them here at the school. You do have to earn a 75% or better for a pre-licensing course, 70% or better for a CE or continuing education course. With the two options that you get a longer period of time, independent learning style, you work at your own pace, it's still formatted, it's still structured to help you be successful. I often see students who lack discipline take those types of courses. They don't touch the materials enough. They don't set or carve out time to successfully complete their course. And then those courses end up expiring. And they either have to pay to extend the course or they have to pay for the entire course over again. Don't get caught in that bubble. Make sure you do your work, okay? We also, part of the changes that are most recent with the pandemic and how this affects real estate as well as from an educational perspective, virtual proctoring of these examples. So at one point, if you were completing like a self-study course, you would have had to come into the school to take your final exam. Not as of right now. You can take that final exam at our school, the Realtors Real Estate School, virtually. We would proctor that exam and it would be completed via like a Zoom link. So you need some things like a selfie stick, of course, your cell phone, the ability to see your hands and placement of materials. Like you couldn't have your laptop open with your book and other notes as you're taking the test. It's just like any other final exam or proctored exam that you would take in person. You've got to put all of that up, and then the proctor must visually watch you take the exam to prevent any cheating of sort. Okay. The biggest bonus that I see from being virtual is you have the ability to work again at your own pace and from the comfort of your home. I have seen so many students over the course of almost a year now with us doing the whole stay-at-home order and mandates, working successfully through their real estate courses from home. And many of them who thought that they couldn't have been able to achieve the goal and have licenses right now because they hunkered down, they found the discipline, they got comfortable with the computer in that webinar format, knowing that the instructor was there to hear, to see, to answer any questions that they may have, and they came out successfully completing their course, earning their license, and now working in this industry as an essential person. Let's talk about some of the delays in obtaining your real estate license. The biggest one is testing. How does that affect? What effect does this pandemic have on the testing? At one point, once you've completed your course, and let's say you completed your course on a Monday, and we usually say give it about 24 to 48 business hours to allow the transmission from the school to AMP/PSI, which is the proctor for the state, so that we can transmit the proof over to them that you have successfully completed your course. That's still in place. So 24 to 48 business hours, usually they have everything about you so that you can call and schedule your exam. You noticed I said call because AMP is still very overwhelmed. They are overwhelmed when it comes to being the only proctor for the state of Illinois. Now, although they proctor across the United States, I'm only speaking of Illinois because that's where the school is. That's where your license will be. That's my primary concern. So for Illinois in particular, being the only proctor, it's not like 4 or 5 different places that you can call. They were overwhelmed. And many did not know that they closed a lot of their testing facilities, satellite locations from March 13th, when pretty much the free world shut down last year, through June 1st. Although there were some students that were able to find testing centers that were open, like the downtown location on Michigan Avenue, it was really hush hush. It was such a secret that it was so unfortunate. Another unfortunate thing, a lot of times students were able to schedule an appointment and then showed up to the testing site and found out that their appointment had been canceled, or they had to reschedule their appointment. So this pandemic has truly affected the ability for people to get the information and then go get it out in a testing format. AMP, PSI, they have now, as of August of last year, They have a dedicated phone line that students that are prepared and ready to take their licensing exam can call to schedule an appointment. You're still taking a test in person. None of this is done online, meaning that they can Zoom you in and watch you take your test. Nope. You're going to put on your mask. You're going to put on any other PPE or protective equipment, and you're going to go in person to those testing centers and take your test. And hopefully you're passing on that first attempt so you don't have to be subjected to that process again. Another thing that we have done here at our school, and I believe many other schools, there was an extension in terms of your course that I know from March through July of last year, the Realtors Real Estate School gave out complimentary extensions of your course. If it was expiring during those times through July 31st of 2020, we didn't even charge you for an extension because it wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. So what we did is every month, and I was one of those people along with my other colleagues in the education department, we extended each and every one of those courses out. That bought some extra time for people to complete their courses. And unfortunately, some didn't, but fortunately, many did. They took advantage of those extensions. Automatically, you get 6 months to complete a self-study or an online course for brokers. It's 90 days for residential leasing agents. So if you're getting that period of time to complete your course and you can't get it done, right now you can pay for an extension, which would be $30 for 30 days or $60 for 60 days. After you've exhausted the 60 days, unfortunately, we cannot extend your course any longer. You will have to retake the course and pay in full for that course. Okay, so try to get your work done, as I said before. With the centers being overwhelmed, PSI AMP had to pretty much hire a bunch of people as quickly as possible to get back up and running. So they had that dedicated phone line for the state of Illinois, but they also had a bunch of new people sitting in those seats, fielding and answering the phone calls that were coming in. There were times, and I heard a bunch of frustrated students during that March to June, even July, August, that were saying that they were spending about 45 minutes on a call waiting for someone on the AMP PSI side to answer and respond and help them get scheduled for their licensing exam. And then after 45 minutes of waiting, click, the phone would hang up. You are in a queue when you're calling a call center. Although it's much better now, I must say, you're still in a queue. And oftentimes you're going to get somebody who might be brand new and might not be as trained efficiently to handle your call. Don't get frustrated. Just realize that there is a big virus that's out here. And that person on the other end of that phone is just trying to do their best to do a job. I've told students, and I've done it myself, I've actually had to say thank you, never mind, hang up, call back to get somebody different on that call, on that phone number, just to make sure that my needs were being met and that my questions had been answered by someone who was well versed or informed about the licensing process from the testing centers. So take that also into consideration. I've never actually even heard of this happen before in the 20 years that I've been in the real estate industry, but the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulations even extended renewal periods for last year. So the effect of the pandemic having on those brokers, because it was a broker renewal cycle last year, those are always done on even number years. This year, it's the managing brokers that are renewing their license. No, there has not been an extension provided to managing brokers, to my knowledge, as of today. But I know last year, if your license was expiring on April 30th of 2020, as broker licenses did, or July 31st, 2020 for residential leasing agents, your renewal was extended until the end of September of 2020. So you had 5 additional months as a broker. So it's July, so 2 additional months as a residential leasing agent to get your post-licensing coursework done to renew your license, or your continuing education done to renew your license. I've never heard of IDFPR doing that in the history that I've been working in real estate. So that was because of the effect of this virus on our industry. It was deemed, in a sense, unfair to penalize someone who probably had suffered through unemployment or job loss, or a sick family member, or themselves having to care for people due to the coronavirus impact on their household. So that extension was given. I'm hoping that, if you are one of those people that renewed your license, that you did, or if you are interested in pursuing a license, you now know that that's the first time something like that happened. Never in the history that I can remember have IDFPR done anything like that. So that was truly well, kudos, and thank you, IDFPR, for doing that. One other effect that it's still ongoing that this pandemic has on real estate, even after you've earned your license, you've taken the course, you've managed to get through the testing, and you've successfully passed, and now you're looking for a sponsoring broker, it's really hard in some cases to do a face-to-face meeting with a sponsoring broker. So a lot of those first-time appointments when meeting sponsoring brokers or real estate offices that you would like to work with as you're interviewing these companies have now turned and moved to a virtual sense. So you might be doing a virtual interview, maybe the first, maybe even the second time that you're interviewing these different companies. That's okay. And I talked to a student yesterday. She was a little frustrated because she's like, nobody's calling me back and nobody's wanting to meet with me in person. Well, think about this. People want to be safe. They want to be safe. And it's a screening process to ensure they want to ask questions. Have you been out the country? Have you been exposed? Are you awaiting the results of a COVID test? And it's not just easy to just readily walk into an office right now. So you just want to take all of that into consideration. There is right now, what's the name of it? I wrote it down. We are currently under an extension of the Restore Illinois Mitigation Plan through the state of Illinois. Our governor, Governor Pritzker, as well as the mayor of the city of Chicago, extended that plan, Restore Illinois. Basically, we're in tiers to see when the restaurants will open up fully again, or 25 people can be, or more can be at a funeral, or you can now come back downtown or in wherever your office is located. So right now we're still under that plan. You can't just readily walk into these different places. So sponsoring brokers' offices will be the same. So here's what I recommend that you do. Start using a lot of these free tools that are accessible to you, like Zoom, so that you can do these virtual meetings, feel comfortable. You're not wasting your time, your money, your gas, driving around to all of these different places if you're not even getting a good feel over the computer about an office. So make sure that your questions, your training, ask the sponsoring brokers about training, ask the sponsoring brokers about educational opportunities. What's a plan for you in terms of success over 30, 60, 90 days? Use this time wisely to get your questions in place so that as you're virtually interviewing them, you tend to dwindle down that list of prospect or prospective offices that you would like to work in to get to the meat and potatoes of those offices that you know for sure you want to go in and be nosy and look around and see what the setup is to determine if that's going to be a good fit for you, okay? Let's talk about the effect And this is my last part of this series of office hours, this episode of Office Hours with Lanora. Let's talk about the effect of scholarships, because we often forget about that. I know a ton of people, unfortunately, their income has been impacted by this virus. Think of your servers. Think of the restaurant employees, the hospitality employees who you're not working, or in most cases now being unemployed, underemployed, meaning you're not getting enough hours, or just having a job loss altogether. You're not bringing in the income to support your household. But you also need to find another stream or another industry or another type of job to get into so that you can get back into working and earning. So if you're looking at real estate as an option for you to take, and I'm talking to a lot of people that are, if you're looking for that option, consider applying for a scholarship. Now, these scholarships at the Realtors Real Estate School and for the Realtors Real Estate School, many of them are deemed reimbursable. For example, the pre-licensing Roadmap to Realtor Scholarship for the broker program. The exceptions are online. You can't apply for this scholarship if you're taking the online course. But a webinar, self-study, and eventually when we get back to the classroom, a classroom version would be applicable and acceptable to this scholarship. Applying for this scholarship, you do need to have 2 letters of recommendation. One of those letters of recommendations has to be from a Chicago Association of Realtors member in good standings with at least 18 months or more in the industry, actively working as a realtor, okay? And the other letter of recommendation can be from anyone in a professional industry. You're also going to need to submit a 60 to 90 second video on why you want to become a realtor. And there are some questions that you'll need to answer as a part of the application. We call it the business plan. And the business plan is going to ask questions related to how steadfast, what's your footing to be in this industry. It'll ask questions about what's your metric of success. Will it be the number of closings, the amount of money, the number of showings that you may do? Another question, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, so forgive me, might be, have you put any savings aside to kind of help you and carry and float you through beginning a career in real estate? Because for some of us, we don't just get out of the school and find the first real estate office we sign up with and the first customer, eventually client we work with, turns into a closed deal. If that happened for you, I'm so happy. But that's not the case for many of us. And with that being the case, you're going to need something to kind of help carry you through to ensure that you don't get in the business or this industry and get right back out of it in a few months or so. So do your best to save as much and as best as you can, okay? That is this episode of Office Hours with Lanora. Of course, it's still the home edition. I'm bunkering and hunkering down just like you. Remember, we have upcoming classes at the Realtors Real Estate School next week on January 20th, which will be Wednesday. We will start our morning only sessions, which is a webinar. It would be Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 9 a.m. until 12:45 p.m. It takes a little over 6 weeks to finish the required 75 hours that way too. So if you're interested in a career in real estate, you know what to do. Give me a call at 312-214-5513. Again, that number is 312-214-5513. That number rings both my office phone as well as my cell phone. So you go get me one way or the other. Or you can always email me at ltolliver@chicagorealtor.com. LTOLLIV as in victory, ER @chicagorealtor.com. Until we meet again on next week, I want you guys to continue to remain safe. Know that this too shall pass, but we each and every one of us have to do our part to continue to decrease or limit as much exposure to this coronavirus or COVID-19 virus, as well as to make sure that we're keeping ourselves and our loved ones safe. So I will continue to keep you in my prayers. You keep me in yours. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye. Ta-ta for now.